A manager's desk. Hale laughed bitterly, rain dripping from his coat. Phantoms? The board's the ghost, faceless, eternal. I just oiled the gears. Like you oil yours, Holmes. Words out. Baker Street's syringe king, chasing highs between cases. The words struck like pressurized foam, Holmes's vision blurring, the old hunger surging. His hand twitched toward an inner pocket where temptation once hid, now empty save memory's gleam. Watson moved to intervene, but Holmes raised a palm. Let him speak. Truth's the first burn. Hale circled, voice rising over the crackle. Thorne poisoned the valves for her dead husband's revenge. I forged the logs for mine. Hargrove looked the other way for whiskey gold. Even your Lily here, witness to her pa's end, stayed silent for a roof overhead. We're all drowned standing, Holmes. Progress demands it. Why fight the current? Thorne tensed, fists clenching, but Lily touched her arm. He's the echo, not the source. Holmes nodded slowly, the vault's heat mirroring the fire building within. I fought alone once, Victor. Cocaine's isolation, cases as communion. But these, he gestured to the group, wrenched the valve. Fairchild's widow spoke of demons preying on solitude. Faith's not opium, it's the community turning the wheel against the flood. Hale sneered, backing toward the door. Faith. Try facing the board tomorrow without my counterdocs. They'll paint you mad, Holmes. The attic detective hallucinating drowned ghosts. He bolted into the corridor, satchel flapping. Holmes pursued, legs pumping through smoke-hazed halls, the others close. Rain lashed outside as Hale dashed toward the Thames docks, fog swallowing his form. Holmes's lungs burned, not from chase but craving. The syringe's phantom pull stronger now, promising numbness amid chaos. Watson shouted behind, Holmes, don't! They cornered Hale at the estuary's edge, Crossness's silhouette hulking across black water, engines thrumming like a heartbeat. Hale hurled the satchel into the murk, pages scattering on waves. Too late. Hale panted, hands on knees, but as Hargrove cuffed him rough, Holmes staggered, vision tunneling. The High called, a siren in the storm, one dose to steady the mind for trial. Lily reached him first, gripping his arm with surprising strength. Not alone, Mr. Holmes. Remember the family's eyes tonight, purpose-piercing grief. She pressed a small Bible into his palm, pages damp but words etched deep. Pa marked this, though I walk through the valley. The rest waited unspoken, a community anchor. Thorne nodded, husky voice cutting rain. Zealots like me amend in ashes. Hale's chained now, our wreckage faced. Watson clapped Holmes's shoulder, military bearing unyielding. You've turned more than valves tonight, old chap. Hargrove grunted, dragging Hale away. Dawn Court's waiting. Board'll choke on truth. Holmes pocketed the book, tremor easing as thunder cracked overhead. The craving receded, not vanquished but held at bay by shared light-piercing fog. Yet as they trudged back, a distant splash echoed from the estuary. Not satchel pages, but something heavier. Fairfax's whisper resurfaced in Holmes's mind. The 56th standing surrender. Lightning forked, illuminating Crossness's reservoirs, dark mouths where men had drowned upright, secrets perhaps not fully purged. Trial dawn brought justice, but Holmes's soul creaked, one final pressure test amid the rising tide of doubt, what lingered in the depths, waiting to rise. Dawn crept over the Thames estuary like a reluctant confessor, painting the Crossness Pumping Station in bruised greys and golds. The air hung heavy with brine and coal smoke, the massive beam engines groaning in rhythmic penance as if mourning the drowned. Sherlock Holmes stood at the edge of the Erith dockside, collar turned against the chill wind that whipped his greatcoat. His fingers, still clutching Lily Graves's damp Bible, trembled not from cold, but from the insistent whisper within, the 7% solution beckoning like an old lover in the shadows of his mind. Hale's arrest had cracked the case wide, yet the splash from the night before gnawed at him, a loose thread in the tapestry of justice. Watson approached first, his limp more pronounced after the chase, face etched with the steadfast loyalty of a man who'd chronicled miracles and madness alike. Holmes, you've scarcely slept. Let me summon a cab back to Baker Street. The trial can wait its formalities. Holmes shook his head, eyes fixed on the sludge-black water where Hale's satchel had vanished. No, John. The board's men will circle like vultures by noon. Hargrove's dragging Hale to Bow Street now, but the full confession must be ours to witness. He felt the weight of the book in his palm, its leather worn smooth by generations of Graves' hands. Lily's father, the whistleblower whose warnings had been sludge-flushed away. "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," he murmured, the words tasting foreign yet anchoring, like gravel under boot soles. Lily appeared from the mist-shrouded path leading from Crossness, her simple woolen shawl clutched tight, face pale but resolute under the brim of her bonnet. "The families are gathering at the station gates, Mr. Holmes. 54 markers in the workers' cemetery, but they need more than stone, truth to carve their names eternal." Her voice carried the quiet steel of the Thames tide, ebbing grief into purpose. Eliza Thorne lingered a step behind, her crimson lips pressed thin, raven hair dishevelled by the gale. Rain-slicked corset clinging like a second skin, she looked less the seductress now and more a storm-tossed ship seeking harbour. "You've chained the engineer, Holmes, but the board's rot festers deeper. My husband's ledgers. Hale burned them, but copies rot in my Mayfair attic. Use them or this victory sours." Holmes nodded, the group's fractured light piercing his fog. "Very well. To Bow Street, then the station for the families. But first, Watson, press Hargrove for Hale's cell. No private whispers with his masters." The hansom rattled them through fog-veiled streets, Erith's industrial sprawl giving way to London's heart. Holmes's mind raced ahead, piecing the puzzle. Hale's sabotage, timed with high-tide overflows to drown the night shift upright in reservoirs, lungs burning, feet mired, a macabre tableau of corporate greed. 54 souls poisoned not just by sludge, but silenced by bribes to Hargrove and the Metropolitan Board of Works. Yet the 56th, Fairfax's ghost whisper, hinted at one survivor, or perhaps a perpetrator who chose the depths. Bow Street. Magistrate's Court loomed, gas lamps flickering against dawn's pallor. Inside, the air reeked of damp stone and unwashed fear. Hargrove, pockmarked face glistening with sweat, shoved Hale into the dock. The burly inspector shot Holmes a scowl laced with whiskey tang. "Court's in session early for this lot. Hale's singing like a canary, admit it all or swing." Hale, bespectacled and slick no more, slumped in chains, scarred hands twitching. His oily charm had curdled to desperation. It was for promotion, Holmes. The board wanted Crossness quiet. Leaks from those reservoirs threatened the Thames purification scheme. I rigged the valves during the storm surge, blamed Thorne's anarchists. 54 drowned standing, lungs full of filth because profits demanded silence. Gasps rippled through the sparse gallery. Workers' kin crammed shoulder to shoulder, eyes hollow with loss. Lily gripped her shawl, whispering to a matron beside her whose son had been among the drowned. "See? Not accident, not fate. Murder for margins." Holmes stepped forward, a voice cutting like a scalpel through the murmurs. "And the ledgers, Hale. Payments to Hargrove, falsified reports to the board, but the splash last night. Your satchel held more than confessions. Coordinates for a hidden reservoir, perhaps? The 56th man who walked away or sank willingly?" Hale's eyes darted, arrogance fracturing. "Fairfax. The foreman knew too much. My accomplice until he balked. I waited him last night, sent him to join the others. No loose ends." The courtroom erupted, Hargrove's face draining to ashen. Lies. But Holmes produced Lily's Bible, flipping to a marked page where her father had scrawled dates matching the bribes. "Your own hand betrays you, Inspector. Fairfax's body will surface with tide. Proof eternal." As constables hauled Hale and Hargrove away in tandem chains, the gallery surged forward. A widow clutched Holmes's sleeve, tears carving paths through grime. "My Tom's name. Will it echo now?" "It will," Holmes promised, throat tight. "The board falls today. Petitions to Parliament, headlines in the Times, you're dead demanded." Outside, rain slackened to mist, sunlight fracturing through clouds like divine judgment. The group reconvened at Crossness, families milling the engine halls where behemoths thrummed subdued. Eliza handed over a satchel of duplicate ledgers, her voice husky with unaccustomed vulnerability. "Revenge blinded me, Holmes. Husband died fixing Hale's first sabotage, ideals twisted to venom. Take these. Purge the poison. Lily led Holmes to the workers' cemetery beyond the sludge reservoirs, modest stones huddled under yew trees, wind sighing through branches. Here, amid mud and memory, she knelt by her father's grave. Pa saw the corruption young. Faith kept him speaking, till it didn't. She traced the Bible verse etched there. He restoreth my soul. Holmes knelt beside her, the craving surging anew amid quiet, the needle's promise of clarity mocking his frayed nerves. His hands shook as he opened the book, words blurring. I've solved crimes of flesh and folly, Lily, yet this, my own abyss, mocks me. Cocaine's grip, tighter than any chain. She placed her hand over his, calloused from station labours, warm against the damp chill. No one's beyond the depths, Mr. Holmes. Pa marked this for shadows like yours. Grace meets effort halfway. The families forgive because they've drowned too. Choose surface. Watson watched from afar, moustache twitching with pride. Holmes rose, pocketing the syringe he'd carried like a talisman, hurling it into the reservoir's maw. The splash echoed small against the engine's roar, a personal tide turning. Not vanquished, but surrendered for now. Word spread like fire through fog, arrests at dawn, board scrambling. Reporters swarmed the gates, but Holmes slipped away with the group to the sanctuary of a nearby chapel, St. John the Evangelist, its stained glass casting crimson pools on pews, worn smooth by penitents. Inside, Reverend Ellis, a fellow traveller in Redemption's trenches, gathered the families. Candles flickered, air thick with incense, and sobs turned to hymns. Holmes sat in the back, transformation stirring uneasy. Detached genius no more. The case had dragged him through mirrors of his vice. Thorne confessed her anarchist plots in hushed tones to the reverie, earning nods, not scorn. Community wove the broken threads. Yet as Vespers told, a runner burst in, breathless from the docks. Fairfax's body surfaced. Waited, yes, but clutching a final note. Board chairman's orders dated pre-drownings. The rot climbed higher. Holmes's pulse quickened, the final test looming. Chairman himself at Crossness tonight, to silence witnesses? The restoration teetered, one last shadow rising from the depths to test if light held. The runner's words hung in the incense-heavy air of St. John the Evangelist Chapel like a noose tightening. Holmes felt the familiar thrill ignite his veins, sharper now without cocaine's haze, pure, unadulterated deduction warring with the fragile peace he'd glimpsed moments before. Fairfax's note, clutched in the sodden corpse's fist, pointed straight to Lord Reginald Blackwood, the Metropolitan Board's shadowy chairman, a man whose ledgers Holmes had glimpsed in Thorne's hidden papers, bribes funneled through Hargrove, drownings orchestrated to bury embezzlement scandals amid the station's expansion. Lily Graves leaned forward in the pew, her face pale under the stained glass glow, hands clasped around Pa's worn Bible. We've come this far, Mr. Holmes. Don't let the depths claim another soul. Reverend Ellis nodded solemnly from the pulpit, his voice a gravelly anchor. The light breaks even at midnight, lad. Go, but take the grace with you. Holmes met Watson's eyes across the flickering candles. Old friend, it ends tonight. Blackwood at Crossness, silencing the last loose ends, perhaps Hale, or even Eliza if she hasn't fled. Watson's moustache bristled, his military posture straightening. I'm with you, Holmes. Rifle steadier than any syringe. They slipped out into the fog-choked night of Erith, the Thames estuary's brackish wind carrying the distant clang of pumping engines like a heartbeat refusing to still. Gas lamps sputtered along the mud-slick path to Crossness, their yellow pools shrinking against the gloom. Holmes's mind raced, piecing the final threads. Blackwood's orders predated the drownings, timed with the sludge reservoir's overflow test, a malfunction that glued 54 men upright in thickening filth, lungs burning as they suffocated standing, too panicked to climb. Corporate greed masked as accident, workers expendable cogs in the industrial machine. The station loomed ahead, its colossal beam engines groaning through the brick arches, steam hissing like serpents. Acrid sewage stench clawed the throat, mingled with coal smoke and the metallic tang of fear sweat. Holmes led them through a side grate, boots squelching on slime-slick gratings. Watson gripped his revolver, breath steady despite the vice of dread squeezing his chest. Voices echoed from the cavernous engine hall. Low, urgent. Hale's oily timbre first. Please, my lord, I've said nothing. The sabotage was Thorne's doing, the anarchists. Victor, your hands built the false valves. Blackwood's voice slithered out, aristocratic frost over steel. Enough. The board's reputation hangs by this thread. One bullet and... Holmes burst through the shadows. Violin case discarded earlier, now repurposed as a shield. Watson flanked him, revolver leveled. Inspector Hargrove, step aside. Your whiskey breath betrays the payroll you're on. Hargrove whirled, pockmarked face twisting in the lantern light, pistol half drawn. Holmes, you meddling... Blackwood chuckled from the gloom, tall and imperious in tailored velvet, cane tapping the iron floor. The great detective reduced to chapel piety. Your vice is no secret. One word from me and Mycroft buries you. Eliza Thorne emerged from a side tunnel, wrists bound but eyes blazing, raven hair dishevelled. Lies, all of it. My husband died exposing your rot, Blackwood. The drownings, your engineers sealed the vents. The air thickened, engines pounding like judgment drums. Holmes circled, grey eyes dissecting motives. Seeds planted weeks ago bloomed now. Hale's scarred hands matched the valve tampering. Hargrove's scowl hid falsified reports. Blackwood's cane concealed a derringer. But the twist, the true architect, lay in the etched Bible verse Lily had shown him. He restoreth my soul, not just for the lost, but for the tempters too. Hargrove lunged first, desperation cracking his facade. Bullet whizzed past Holmes's ear, ricocheting off a beam with a spark. Watson fired true, grazing the inspector's shoulder, enough to drop him writhing. Hale bolted for the reservoir stairs, but Eliza tripped him with bound feet, her zeal turning ally. Coward, face the widows you drowned. Blackwood raised his cane, derringer glinting. Intellectual curiosity ends here, Holmes. But Holmes was faster. Pipe wrench from the floor arcing down, shattering the weapon. The chairman staggered, face crumpling not in rage, but hollow defeat. You've no proof. The proof surfaced with the tide. Watson held up the retrieved note from Fairfax's body, ink smeared but legible. Orders from RB. Flood test. Eliminate witnesses. Board seal intact. Reporters wait at the gates. Dawn brings warrants. Blackwood sank to his knees amid the sludge puddles, empire dissolving in the engine's roar. Rot from the top, Holmes murmured, but grace reaches even thrones. Lily's words echoed in his mind, her calloused hand a talisman against the craving that whispered still. Outside, as constables swarmed, tipped by Reverend Ellis's telegraph, the fog lifted slightly, estuary dawn painting the Thames in bruised silvers. Families gathered at the chapel gates, sobs mingling with relieved murmurs. Lily embraced Eliza, unlikely sisters in sorrow. Thorne whispered, "Thank you for seeing beyond the venom." Hale confessed in chains. Hargrove bartered immunity for names higher up. Blackwood, stripped of title, faced trial amid headlines screaming corruption's depths plumbed. Holmes stood apart on the mudflats, wind whipping his coat, the syringe long sunk in oblivion. Watson clapped his shoulder. "You've changed, old chap. Not the cases. The man." "Have I?" Holmes gazed at the receding station, its behemoths slowing to a hush. The abyss stared back, but I chose the light. Effort met grace halfway as she said, "No perfection, only persistence. The families forgave not from weakness but forged strength, community's quiet miracle." Reverend Ellis approached with Lily, Bible open. "Psalms again?" Holmes smiled faintly, the gaunt lines softening. "Restoreth my soul." "Aye, Reverend. One case at a time." Word spread through London's fog. The Crossness horror unveiled. 54 souls honoured in a new memorial garden by the estuary. Wildflowers nodding over engraved names. A sanctuary amid the grit. Holmes returned to Baker Street, violins singing redemption strain, cocaine's shadow lingering but diminished. Yet in quiet nights when pipes glowed and Watson chronicled, Holmes pondered the fellow travellers, Lily's unyielding hope, Eliza's tragic fire, even Hargrove's flicker of remorse in custody. No one beyond depths, indeed. As the gas lamps dimmed on 1890's close, Holmes felt the transformation route. Not a saint's halo, but a detective's heart cracked open to Grace's insistent light. The macabre tale of Crossness ended not in triumph's blaze, but hope's steady flame. Workers' ghosts laid to rest, corrupt chains broken, one man's soul inching toward surface. Watson penned the final lines by firelight. Another adventure, Holmes? Always, my dear Watson. But this one restored us all. This story is created by a young creator whose dream is to reach 1,000 subscribers. If you enjoy these tales, subscribing helps more than you know, and he thanks you for it. Subscribe for more cases that test your deduction skills.